go again?
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing?
Once more unto the breach. Dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews, connections in mind. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and is the official kickoff of the MCU Phase 5. And is once again directed by Peyton Reed and once again stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, so many more, introducing Jonathan Majors, or rather introducing him in a cinematic capacity as Kang the Conqueror. And this movie, we see the Lang family and Van Dyne family get sucked into the quantum realm, and it is up to them to not only escape the quantum realm unscathed, but also to prevent unleashing the greatest threat since Thanos into the multiverse. Now, this video review will contain spoilers of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, as well as certain other things, but I'll do my spoiler-free thoughts first and foremost, so that, just so you know, there will be some spoiler talk later on this review. However, first and foremost, my spoiler-free thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Is it worth seeing? Is it worth not seeing in theaters? Is it any good? Is it a worthy kickoff to Phase 5 of the Cinematic Universe? I would say, if this is the official kickoff of Phase 5, then I have to be honest, it's definitely a rocky start. Now, I try to avoid any kinds of reviews and opinions before I say a movie, just because I want to approach these movies with as fresh in mind as possible, and also avoid watching any reviews after I see the movie, just because I want to give you my full and unfiltered opinion without so much influence of others as to what I thought the movie, and that doesn't always work. And going into this, I had heard some mixed things about this particular installment of the MCU, and I didn't want to believe it because I had hoped that Marvel had learned its lessons from previous disappointments, namely Eternals, namely Thor: Love and Thunder, and that maybe they would this would be course correction. And also, I know the Ant-Man movies have not been the most appreciated MCU films thus far. I know they're definitely liked, but they're not definitely ranked among the highest liked films of the MCU. And while I don't rank them the highest either, I really enjoyed the first Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I was really hoping that the haters were wrong, that this is definitely going to be another fun-filled installment of the Ant-Man storyline. And I gotta say, it's not. I'm sorry to say it. I was really disappointed with this movie, and for a couple of reasons. One, well, first let me get some positives out of the way, because there definitely are some good things to be had. There's Paul Rudd still knocked it out of the park as Scott Lang and Ant-Man. After all these movies, he is still what keeps us going. As well as Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. We saw him as Kang briefly a little bit teased in the first season of Loki, and in here he's still a great villain. He's a great menacing presence, but also you can see some gentleness and in there as well, which does the dual purpose of humanizing him to a certain extent, but also it gives that ruthlessness an extra edge that I think that this performance definitely requires. And while he's not quite up to the point of understandable villain as Thanos was, I'm definitely interested to see where they go from here as far as Kang goes. And if we get more Jonathan Majors, the more the merrier. He did a great job in this movie. However, sadly, I think that's where the positives have to end, at least from my standpoint, because while yes, there are some decent action, big CGI fights near the end, as is the standard for pretty much all the Marvel movies now. Really, there's not much else that I can say is a positive, and this is where I sorry to say the negatives have to start, because this is not as fun a Ant-Man movie as the previous installments, and I feel like that's due to a couple of factors. One, Michael Peña's Luis is not in this movie, which is a huge bummer. He was a huge comic relief, and they don't really replace him with any real comic relief with this. There's one alien that he has a couple of chuckles in one scene, and he kind of pops up again near the end that brings the joke around full circle, and that was okay. But really, there's not much else to that, and Paul Rudd has to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the comedic elements of it. And then that brings me to the second reason why this isn't as fun, is that Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, he's not, his appearances are choppy, and his comedic talents do not get used very much, unfortunately. The editing in this is baffling, in my opinion, because for the first 2/3 of the movie, they're switching back and forth between different groups of people. And for one thing, and this is not a spoiler because it's in the trailers. If you've seen the trailers, you know, yes, they get sucked into the quantum realm. That happens in the first less than 10 minutes of the movie. I want to say like 5 to 7 minutes into the movie, they get sucked into the quantum realm, and you have, you know, Scott and his grown daughter Cassie as one group, and then Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne and Janet Van Dyne are the second group, and it keeps cutting back and forth between them. They're trying to meet up with each other, and they do it in such a way that they did the same thing in Thor: Love and Thunder, where one scene is going and it cuts immediately in seemingly mid-sentence into another scene that is nowhere near as interesting, and then nothing of its consequence really gets discussed or happens, and then it cuts right back to the interesting scene as if nothing happened. It's like, why would you do this? This is such a dumb thing that I think that Marvel is doing more and more lately. Like I said, they did it in Love and Thunder, and now they're doing it again here. It's like, why do you think that that's a good editing choice? Seriously. It's just so bothering. Maybe I'm the only one who's getting bugged by that, but I swear this is definitely the one where that happens more. And also, again, another reason why I think this movie is disappointing is that I think a lot of the elements of fun that came from the Ant-Man movies was its surrealness, and that surrealness came from the weirdness from the mundane. I think like it's the fun where it's like, oh, Ant-Man, he's a guy who, you know, he can communicate with ants. That's weird. And then when he shrinks down, he's walking among these ants. And, you know, in the first movie, we get to see, oh man, you can not only shrink things, but you've got big things coming out too. You got giant Thomas the Tank Engine coming out of the house. That's weird. And in the second movie, you got, oh man, you got a building that can shrink down. And, you know, when you're inside it, oh, he's powered by a couple of D-cell batteries. Oh, that's interesting. And then you got, you know, henchmen dodging giant Hello Kitty Pez dispensers. You know, that's the kind of fun that we can have with the world of Ant-Man. And here, we get none of that. And there's the one note in particular, it's a line dialogue that comes and goes relatively quickly, but I had to hanker on this, and it's the design of the quantum realm itself. And there's a line that explains why it looks the way it does, different from what we saw it in the previous films, and that is such a disservice, I think. Now basically the quantum realm has become a generic Guardians of the Galaxy-esque environment, but without the Guardians of the Galaxy. And, you know, that's a huge bummer in my opinion. We already have the Guardians of the Galaxy. Ant-Man, you know, in the quantum realm, it was such a unique and type of realm that it was really cool. I wanted to explore the way it as was being set up, but now, nope, it's this. And again, it's such a generic thing, and it's such a bummer. And beyond that, there's a couple other nitpicks that add on one another, and I'll discuss that in the spoiler talk. But suffice it to say, this movie it feels not only a step down in terms of fun and less surreal and charm than the previous Ant-Man movies, but if this is the big kickoff for Phase 5, this is supposed to set the tone for, the next 6 or 7 movies to come, and 9 or 10 shows on Disney Plus, that I'm not feeling it, and maybe that's Marvel's own fault that they set a standard so high with the lead up to Infinity War and Endgame, and then those movies themselves, that you can't live up to that standard anymore, and audiences expect that standard now. And at this point, it's like, yeah, okay, they're fine, but that's really all they are. And while fine can be good on some basis, the fact of the matter is, we're judging these Marvel movies to a different standard, and this movie just did not live up to that standard, I feel like. So I hate to say, if I'm going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania a letter grade, I never thought I'd have to grade an Ant-Man movie this way, but I'm going to have to give it a C-. I can't quite bring myself up to bring it into the a D+ area, because there is just enough Paul Rudd charm. And Evangeline Lilly, for what she has, she's the absent. Doesn't get a whole lot to do with this movie, but when they're together, and also Cassie Lang, what she has to go for is decent enough. That brings it up a little bit, but like I said, there's just so much disappointing about this and generic about this that I have to give it a C-. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now let's get into some spoiler talk as to certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you, and where you may have seen them before. So, like I said, this feels very generic as far as the quantum realm, and like I said, there was a line in this from Janet where Hank, Michael Douglas, he says that I didn't think that, he says something to the effect of, I didn't see any of this kind of stuff when I was here last time, and Janet says, that's because you weren't here long enough, or you weren't adapted enough to perceive the realm as this way, and that's why it looked all trippy and frankly awesome the last movie, and here it's just very generic. And beyond that generic feel to it, and this may just be my perception, but this seems like Disney is recycling sets and properties amongst itself, and it seemed very obvious, or at least to me in this movie, a couple ways. One, there's that market scene where Janet, Hope, and Hank they fly onto that amoeba flying reptile thing into this market, and not only does that market look especially, it looks like it's ripped off or recycled from the market planet, I forget the name of it, from Obi-Wan Kenobi, but when they get there, they go into this establishment to find Bill Murray's character, and that has a very Cantina vibe there from A New Hope. And not only that, but Kang the Conqueror's throne room on his scene in his citadel or whatever, that looked very much. I mean, again, designs are going to be very similar, but it felt like they recycled the sets of Darth Vader's throne room from Obi-Wan Kenobi as well from that. And not only that, when the prisoners are trying to break out of the Citadel, when they're getting freed from the inside, and Cassie has to give the inspiring speech on the hologram to motivate the prisoners, not only inside, but the people to attack on the outside. I got very strong prison Volt vibes from Andor as well from that. So, like I said, there's a lot of recycling going on here, and the set recycling I felt was especially egregious. Again, that might just be my perception, and again, I realize sets are expensive and you have to do that, but it's charming when you watch Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan and they're recycling the bridge set 3 different times, and various props are reused for other things. But that's part of the charm of Star Trek. Disney, you're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into these things. I expect more from this, frankly. So there's that comparison to be made, and also you've got the drinking the ooze to hear, so they can start translating what all the aliens are thinking, and that's basically that's nothing new. If you've seen The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you've got the Babel fish that does the same thing, and the way it's presented with Scott Lang, getting force-fed the ooze that way, you could say that's very reminiscent of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, even down to the ritualness associated with that, and we've also got the trope, especially in the beginning, of a character that writes the book about themselves in the sequel. That's just a very tired trope. We've seen it in National Treasure Book of Secrets. We've seen it in Independence Day Resurgence, and those are not the best sequels to be ripping off from, frankly. They kind of got away with it in Enchanted because that was within the movie itself. So that was, you can kind of get away with it that way. But here, the sequel, that trope persists, and not a great trope to be recycling, let me tell you. And aside from that, other things that kind of rub me the wrong way here. There's the plot development with Hank Pym and the ants. You can call them, Chekhov's ant farm, basically, because that gets pointed out pretty much immediately at the beginning of the movie, and then you have Hank making very obvious, motions with his hand, his perceptor with the earpiece, as far as how he detects the ants, and then we're all supposed to be shocked when the ants come back, and they're a major part of the movie. And then, not only is that not a huge shock, but the movie then has to do a flashback sequence to all those scenes that we were picking up throughout it to say, oh yes, this is what was going on the whole time. And it's like, yeah, we all picked that up. Why do you think your audience is so stupid as to not figure out that was what's going on the whole time? And that just rubbed me the wrong way on that front. And then finally, we got to talk about MODOK. It's revealed that MODOK is, Darren from Yellow Jacket from the first Ant-Man. He survived this whole time, and then, Kang basically cobbled up together the pieces to make him MODOK. And it was interesting twist at first, but then they do basically nothing interesting with him, and the CGI is atrocious. That is very much nightmare fuel, and they show it way too much. It was not. They should not have gone that route at all. I mean, to be fair, that's not a easy design to pull off outside of drawing it in a comics world or animating it on Claymation or whatever they did on the Hulu show. But it did not look good. And by the end, you have this weird rivalry between MODOK and Cassie, which, that was built up so much. They briefly mentioned that, oh yes, he's the B guy that, traumatized Cassie in her bedroom when she was 6 or whatever. Okay, that's something, but you barely pay lip service to this, and then all of a sudden he's back, and not as Yellow Jacket, but as a different person. Then they have their little fight. All right, fine, and then they have this exchange where out of nowhere, MODOK has a change of heart where it's like, oh, I don't want to be a dick anymore, and then you have the straight to camera breaking the fourth wall Cassie saying like, it's never too late to be a dick. It's like, okay, first of all, that's about as unsubtle as a brick through a window, fine, but then they have to make it a running joke with MODOK at the end anyway until he finally sacrifices himself. And then it's like, okay, so you're making the kids laugh by saying dick a lot? Okay, haha. And then they give him a death where it's like, is it supposed to be funny? And yet you're playing this super serious music to think that this is such a huge loss? It's like, I have no idea what they were thinking with that, but it did not work at all. And again, I hate to be nitpicking all of this sort of stuff because I like Ant-Man. I wanted this to be a good movie. And there were some good things, as I said, but these are the kind of things that drag it way down and does not live up to that standard that Marvel has set itself. So, like I said, I was not a huge fan of this movie. If you disagree, what did you think of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to tune in next week for my review of Cocaine Bear, which comes out this coming Friday. And while the episodes are airing, I will be doing a overall season review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, the final season. And I've only seen the first episode so far, but I am cautiously optimistic from what I've seen so far. They're making the right kind of moves with this one, much better than the second episode season so far. But again, early days, we'll see how that goes. Again, thank you so much for watching, but just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.